Hello and welcome to the Dreaming and Doing podcast with me, Nicky Raby. I'm an actor, coach, writer, speaker, podcaster and a mum. And in my coaching work, I work with creatives, personal brands, freelancers and small businesses. In my podcast, I talk about success, but not in a traditional sense. I have conversations with those who have built a business from something they love or who have made a pivot in their career. Also those who have built a brand or a job that maybe didn't exist when they were at school, and they found a way to monetize their skills, talents and expertise. I've spoken to loads of incredible people, coaches, designers, journalists, app creators, magazine editors, bloggers, content creators, authors, and all-round movers and shakers. I ask the questions that you want to know the answer to. So how they started, about money, saying no, saying yes, pitching, presenting, putting yourself out there even though it terrifies you, standing out in a busy online world, growing, scaling and making your work for you and your circumstances. The show notes are always at nickyraby.com/podcast and the conversation continues across social media, often on Instagram, my favourite platform, at Nicky Raby. Thanks so much for listening. It's great to have you with us. In today's episode, I talk to Sami Blackford, who is an alchemist, an apothecary, writer and mentor. And she created Freyaluna to harness the magical powers of Mother Nature and to help women feel confident, beautiful and friggin amazing in their own bodies. This was music to my ears. I think the beauty industry, how we feel about ourselves, it's ever evolving, and I look back actually at my teenage self with a little bit of sadness because I didn't realise at the time what I had to be grateful for. Not saying that I was some sort of goddess back in the day, but certainly I had age on my side and probably a lot more sleep. In this episode, we talk about lots of things, about starting your business from your kitchen table, having a job alongside it in order to support it, also changing direction, getting help, finding the right kind of help. It's a really juicy one. So even if you're not that into beauty or creativity, I know that you'll find some great business nuggets from this. As always, please come over and join the conversation over on Instagram at Nicky Raby, or you can find me across social media. I'm there. And if you also want to find out about my coaching stuff, come on over nickyraby.com/coaching, and all the show notes are under the podcast section on my website. Here's the episode and enjoy, and thanks for listening. Hey Sami, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So let's just start with you. Tell me more about your business. I was so intrigued when I came across your website.
Where it all started was I used to have really bad acne. So going back 12 years, I started making skincare products for myself because I tried everything I could find in Boots or, went to the doctors, had prescription products, and even if they helped to calm down the acne, they were leaving my skin really dry. And that was just kind of like the other side of the coin for me. It was just as bad. It was just a different skincare problem. So I got to that point where what else can I do? And started mixing products up for myself with ingredients I had in the kitchen cupboard, herbs I had growing in the garden, just really simple products, and seeing how my skin reacted, and it reacted so well. I was quite taken aback by how well my skin reacted. I was like, it can't really be this simple, surely. So then move on 12 years, in that time it's kind of grown and developed and become a business. So what my passion is to help women to feel confident and beautiful in their own skin, because in the beauty industry we're always told you need to be thinner, you need to be browner, or if you've got dark skin you need to be paler, you need to have fewer wrinkles, you need to look younger. There's all this, you're not good enough as you are.
Yeah, like basically whatever it is that you're doing, can you change quickly?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you've got straight hair, it should be curly. If you've got curly hair, you need to straighten it. And it's always like whatever you've got, you need the opposite. so I wanted to help women to feel good in their skin as they are now. And that doesn't mean like if you've got acne, like which was what my problem was, doesn't mean that you don't want to get rid of that or fix that. That's fine, because acne isn't a natural thing for us to have. But it's to feel good about yourself while you're doing it.
Definitely. And I feel like as a woman as well, like our beauty shelf life is long. Like we don't just want to be, you know, when I was 17, I thought being 36 was like ancient. And I'm now like going, well, actually, I still want to be the best version of myself. And also I look at my nana, who is about to turn, I can say it right, she's not gonna listen to the podcast. She's about to turn 92 and she looks incredible. And also I'm thinking, good that we're seeing a diversity of women and that we all want to feel good, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. And it is that word that you just used, diversity. Our beauty is in our diversity. If we all look the same, it'd just be boring. It becomes so commonplace that it wouldn't be seen as beautiful anymore. So it's that finding our individuality and working with that. And if you can do that while supporting your skin and your health and your well-being, then, you know, it's the best of both worlds.
Definitely. And so how did it begin to, from an idea of going, oh, this actually works on me and I have found sort of that you're getting results, how did it then become a business, and how long was that transition?
Well, when I started making products for myself, like that was a couple of years, and then I had a friend, I've still got a friend who had really bad eczema. So started thinking, oh well, if it works for acne, would something work for eczema? So then it was just kind of like using friends and family as guinea pigs, basically.
Yeah. What ailments have you got? How can have you? Oh yeah, you do look like you've got a bit of a scabby knee. Let's sort that out quick.
So then there was like a few years of basically experimentation, and then when I kind of realised that it wasn't just me that these things were working on, I started doing like the odd little craft fair, Christmas markets, things like that, just really small scale, kind of seeing would people actually pay money for these things, and they did. And so it's hard to say when it actually became a business, because I mean, like, this is like a 12-year transition. It is a business now, but when it actually became a business, it's hard to say, because it's just kind of one of those things that's grown organically and gradually. It's really kind of snowballed over the years.
Gosh, that's so refreshing for you to say, because I know so many people who listen to this podcast, like there's this pressure to have an idea one evening and tell your spouse or tell your family, right, I'm going to build a skincare brand, and all of a sudden within 6 months you're stored in Harrods or somewhere. And I've just never found that to be the case, really, that it is a bit of a slow burner and lots of trial and figuring it out as you go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's only in the last maybe 2 or 3 years. Well, I think about 3 years ago it became like my full-time job, as it were. And it's only in like the last couple of years that I've got to the point where the product range is the product range that I'm happy with, because like the 10 years before that is all been trial and error. What products work, what products people want, you know, how the shelf life works and all that kind of stuff. So it has been like a decade of research and development, or whatever the term is for it. And I think over those years, I've kind of seen, like, you know, the ads on Instagram and Facebook that you get that like 5x your income in like 12 days or whatever.
Yes, I've seen those as well.
I mean, like, okay, great if that's worked for them, but it's not really that realistic for everybody in every industry, and there's some things that you need to take time on. I mean, like, my product range is kind of like my family of children, and you can't bring up a child overnight. You need to kind of nurture it and see who it is and you know, how it works in the world and all that kind of thing. So I think it's important to kind of give you that time to it.
You're so right. How did that work in sort of a mindset way of really trusting that, you know, you would reap the rewards of your labour, as it were? Because I think sometimes when you're in it, or when things are not moving, like, as in, sometimes you can be happy with the pace that it's going at because it's giving you that headspace and that creative time to trial and test and things like that. But then there are sometimes those frustrating things of going, actually, I just want all the money and all the success and all the things right now, though. Like, how did you balance that? Because ultimately as well, we've all got bills to pay, and we've all got kind of, you know, grown-up responsibilities.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, it hasn't been like a bed of roses the whole time. There has been some ups and some very big downs. Not last summer, the summer before, I nearly just packed it all in completely. And it's that, but then I kind of thought, well, I'd still make the products for myself anyway. And I still truly believe in how good, how effective the products are. I truly believe that we should reduce our chemical, the amount of chemicals in our lives, especially with regard to like our bodies. So if I still truly believe in all of that, how can I walk away from what I'm doing? So for me, it's always returning back to like the why.
Yes.
The why you're doing it. And yes, there were bills to pay. That's why I took this long to kind of develop it, because I could still work. To begin with, I was working full-time, then I was working part-time, and eventually I stepped into doing this full-time. So that kind of gave me the security of money coming in and developing what I wanted to do as well.
That's brilliant. And I think it's really important to state those sort of things, because it always comes up on the podcast. There's sort of this glamour to like, I was nothing and then I became something and I just walked out and I had, you know, I was sleeping on somebody's sofa, and I'm like, I'm 36 and I've got a child. I don't want to sleep on somebody's sofa. Like, I do want to have a sleep, but like, I don't want like that glamour. That is not glamorous for me. Feeling like I'm stressed and that I don't have enough headspace or panicked about money is not a way that I create at all. So I think that's great. So, so how did your branding work? Because I guess it's one of those things within the beauty industry that, like, you know, with coaching, it's becoming much more saturated now. Like, everybody's got a business idea. What was your sort of your branding process, and how did you find something that felt like you?
Well, going back to when I first started making the products, I mean, like, the natural skincare industry was really in its infancy. So there was not the number of brands around as there are today. So just to be natural skincare was enough to kind of get people's interest.
Oh yes, of course, because this is like before people were like plant-based or had almond milk, or their 2-year-old said, can we get some avocados? Like, I'm sure my dad like rolled his eyes like, how does he know about these things? Like, we didn't have these in our day.
Yeah, so I mean, like, from what I remember, kind of organic food was just becoming like a thing.
Yes.
At the time. So I mean, like, just to be natural was like different in itself. And then over the years, I've kind of seen like, I really need to do more than just be natural. So that was kind of when I really had to kind of think about like, okay, who am I? What is Freyaluna? You know, what do we stand for? What do we want to share with the world? And that was, I mean, like, even from the beginning, natural beauty, like your own natural beauty, was very important to me. So that stayed like continuous. And then it was also around kind of how do we get away from that anti-aging, you're not good enough as you are message? How do we differentiate from that? How do we put ourselves apart from that? Because we do not want to be associated with that. And actually, if you read through our website, you will never see the term anti-aging. Because yes, our skin needs extra support as we get older, but, you know, support as we get older, we cannot turn back the clock. It doesn't work.
Gosh, that's so... I've never thought of that term in such a negative way before, and it's really just, like, spoken to me. It's like, it's such a terrible message, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those that's kind of ingrained. It's so commonly used in our everyday life, in marketing, if you're in the shops or whatever. Anti-aging is such a commonly used term that it's not necessarily thought of in the way that, it's actually meant. It's, like, you're not allowed to get older. No. You're not allowed to look like you were saying your grandma's like turning 92. You're not allowed to look like you're 92. You need to look like you're 30. Like, how realistic
that would be
is
so
that,
freaky if she rocked up. Like, I've just started using this cream. I was like, what's happened to your face?
So it's about that. That was something that I really thought was important about being comfortable in who you are. And actually, I mean, like, I look back at myself, like photos of myself when I was like 18 or whatever, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, did I really look like that? And I feel more comfortable and more confident in myself now at 34 or whatever I am, than I ever was like in my teens or 20s.
Absolutely.
And I think
and the only kind of like good thing about looking at those awful pictures of myself is that I look at my friends and I go, oh phew, you were wearing the same outfit or the weird perm or the odd shoes that were in fashion at the time. I wasn't the only one.
I know. I just kind of look at like teenagers like now and like, you don't know you're born. Do you know what we had to go through?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we made all the mistakes for you so you could like work through them. Yeah, you're right. You're so right.
And then when I knew that was like a very important thing for me, it was kind of like, well, what is Freyaluna? And when I came up with the name Freyaluna, I wanted, like as I was saying, there was very few brands around at the time, and the brands that were around were kind of very neutral, kind of beige in inverted commas, because they were natural compared to like the gloss of like chemical products and that sort of thing. But I wanted something that was kind of like pretty and quite girly and and that kind of thing. So I decided on the name Freya because I really like that name. And then when I was researching the name, she's a moon goddess in Norway, or in Scandinavia anyway, somewhere over that way. And so that's how Freya and Luna came together. And then when I was researching her even further, she's all about empowering women and helping women to embrace their inner natural beauty. And, she's like a leader of strong women. I was like, that is so perfect. I couldn't have chosen a better name, really. So that's how that all kind of came into the branding as well.
And I love the simplicity of it, because I think sometimes there is such a pressure that we can only feel good about ourselves if we have like the full makeover or the thing or the brand new wardrobe or the new weekend away in Paris or whatever. But actually, like when I had my son, even getting a cracking moisturizer on my dry old face was just, it felt so luxurious, because especially as women, as we get older, we go through stuff and, we're not sort of, life happens, I think, and sometimes those small little moments in the day. Tammy, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago, was talking about this sense of everyday joy, and I think that's right, that we can't always just keep building up to this end point where we have all our ducks in a row, because it's probably not going to happen.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, it's that thing with anything in life, isn't it? If you wait for the perfect time, it's never going to happen.
No, it's true. It's true. And I guess, how did you start to get it out there? So what's been really effective in terms of marketing and people getting to know you and the products?
Well, when I first started, as I said, I was doing a lot of craft fairs, and then I started doing bigger events. So that has been always a great way of meeting people, talking about the products, introducing people to the products, and they can actually try them and smell them, and they get a real feel for the product. And that has always been the best way, getting the product in people's hands.
Yeah.
And then obviously I can't be doing that every day. So I've kind of brought that into other areas of my work as well. So like I do a lot of networking where I always have products in my bag. It's a bit of like a Mary Poppins moment where I'm just like bringing stuff out of my handbag.
So it's like, who is that really nice smelling lady over there? Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, so I've done like I find networking very helpful, not so much from a business point of view, but because I've worked on my own for so long, it's kind of getting out and speaking to real people.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, I started a podcast, so yeah, I clearly don't get out that much.
And I always find like with networking, I know there's like the ones like BNI, which are just completely scary to me. But I go for like the gentler ones where you just basically have a cup of tea and like chat to people. And it's about building those relationships. And yes, I've had business from it, but it's kind of like how my business grew. It's like the long game rather than the quick benefits of it, I think. And then as well, like social media and all that kind of thing as well has helped a lot.
Yeah, I did a post yesterday about what to do when you have a quiet month. And I think there is just this sense of just being consistent and keep showing up and keep telling people, because when that person is looking for the thing that you offer, you will be the go-to person. You will be in their mind. And I think sometimes with those opportunities, you're never quite sure what they're going to come to, but in the end they could surprise you, and it could happen years later. I mean, I had a client the other day who got in touch and she said, "Oh, I've been following you since 2014, but now I feel like it's time." And part of me was like, "Oh wow, okay, cool," but you know, it was just the right time for her at that moment.
Yeah, definitely, and I do put a lot of trust in timing. I mean, like, obviously there's like the whole thing of like law of attraction, you hope for it and it will come. Yes, that's part of it, but you do have to put action in as well. But I do trust like the whole timing of things, and I do believe that things will come to you when it's time. Yeah. So I mean, like recently I've had a feature in Country Living magazine, which has been amazing for my business. Like, I didn't expect how much business I would get, but I was like, yeah, I might get a few extra orders, it'll be fine. Yeah, got quite a lot more than that, which has been brilliant, but I wasn't prepared for it.
Isn't it nice when those like surprising moments come, and like on one hand you're like, oh, this is so brilliant, and then on the second you're like, oh god, I've actually got to make this happen now. Like, it's fine, but like, quick, get all your friends and family involved.
Yeah. And I think as well, I mean, like, in the past I wouldn't have been ready for that, but I think now I was, and it was that next stepping stone I needed to realise or to figure out how I would operate in these circumstances. So again, it's all about the timing, and it's about taking the lessons as well, I think.
Definitely. I guess when you're out and about and you're sharing your products and you're sharing what you do, you're very much in a sort of nurturing, caring capacity of, you know, you probably people end up telling you all sorts of stories about that thing. I can't remember what that doctor's program is, you know, when they would go, I've got this weird thing, and then they get them out on telly. But I think, you know, I guess because it's quite emotional, I guess, talking about beauty or talking about people and how they see their imperfections, as it were, how they would see it. How do you keep yourself topped up so you can be in that caring capacity and really hold the space for people?
Yeah, that I do hear some very deep stories from people, which is really nice that they feel that they can trust me with that information. So I'm always very appreciative of that. But yeah, I do have to put my own self-care kind of at the top of the list so that I can then offer that to other people. Because as you say, it is a very nurturing, very caring role that I have in my work, and that wasn't through necessity. I wanted that to be part of what I do. I never wanted to be the person who's like, oh, here's my latest cream, you should use this, it's X amount of money. It's kind of like, okay, well, what is happening with your skin? You know, what's happening in your life? Are you stressed? Are you, have you got anything else going on? How is it all impacting? And I really wanted that to be a part of what I do. So I have to take care of myself. And as well, I kind of teach my clients and my customers how they can better take care of themselves. And I mean, that sounds quite grandiose of me, but it's those, as we were saying earlier, it's those small things that you can do every day. It's not the yoga retreat in Bali for a week or whatever. It's 5 minutes every day. How can you add that self-care into your day? How can you add, even if it's just like you were saying about putting a moisturizer on your skin, how can you make that the best 2 minutes of the day, putting that moisturizer on your skin? So I have to do that a lot in my own life, taking care of myself. So as I was saying, business kind of went crazy lately. I had to make sure I made time to look after myself. Yes, I could have been up working till 10 p.m. to get orders out the door, but it's more beneficial for me to take the evenings off, relax, get a good night's sleep, and then come back the next day.
Yeah, you're so right. I was thinking this the other day about working smarter, not harder. And both my parents, my mum was a head teacher and my dad was a solicitor. So quite often it was fairly normal for them to come home and continue working in the evening. And because I guess, it was always one of those things that they could finish off. But certainly as well, when I've really noticed, so I sort of emulated that and put that in my own practice, that I would always work really hard. But one thing that I found is the more stuff that I do that is based on creativity or I sound like Britney, a piece of me, it's that sense that I actually have to take that time, because it's not just something that can rattle off a to-do list. It's not something that I can just stick a date on it, hope for the best and get cracking on. That actually it does take a while to cultivate, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah, definitely. And that, I think that's a big part of it, is just getting that headspace. Whether it's for creativity, for writing a blog post or doing a video or whatever it might be, just that headspace to kind of think about, okay, so what do I want to say? What do I feel called to say? And as well to take that time out just to recharge. I mean, if through my work, if I'm giving, if I don't give something back to myself, I'll have nothing left.
Yeah.
So I will be in that place of complete burnout, which I have been in the past, and it's not that fun.
No, it really isn't. And this glamorous thing of I got really ill from it. It's gosh, you don't want the brownie badge of burnout. You really don't, because when you have it, it's really unattractive, not only for you, but also for the people you live with. It's just, it knocks you for six. And one thing I was going to say actually is that it's so funny the way that the beauty industry goes, because on one hand, we're expected to maintain every part of us and not to be a complete scruff bag. The amount of times where after people have a baby, how they snap back and how they were looking better than ever and all this complete rubbish, because I certainly did not have that experience. But also as well, there's this weird thing that it sort of seems a bit shallow or a bit indulgent and selfish to actually take that time for yourself. It's a really weird mix. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. Selfish is one of those words that I have quite strong feelings about. Last year or the year before, I was guest hosting a Twitter hour. I can't remember whose Twitter hour it was, but my topic was self-care. So I opened it with good evening, ladies. Are you ready to get selfish? And the amount that the majority of the responses were, you don't need to feel selfish to looking after yourself. I'm no, that's not the point. That's not the point I was making. Selfish is about the self. If you look at the word, it's self-ish. It's about the self. So it's about looking after yourself. And I think it's been kind of skewed in language and in society, that it's taken on this different connotation, where really if we don't look after ourselves, how can we look after anybody else? And especially as women, because we are like, the majority of us are like the caregivers, the nurturers in our families, whether it's children, partners, friends, parents, you know, whoever it is, we are seen as the caregivers. And if we're constantly giving, then again, we're going to get to that burnout. So if we don't take time for that, for the selfishness, for looking after the self, then where are we going to end up? And I know, like, if I take time to look after myself, like, the people around me benefit from it. Whereas if I'm stressed and overworked and heading towards burnout, then people around me get it in the neck.
Definitely. And certainly the generation of, well, like our own parents, it was almost cool to, at that point, to be a superwoman and have it all and have the kids and run a house. You know, when I think about the stuff that my mum did of like, yeah, sure, your parents are coming to stay for the weekend. Amazing. I'll have a 3-course meal on the table on Friday night and I'll present breakfast on a tablecloth on a Saturday morning, even though I just want to put a pillow over my head. But I think now, because we have that added thing of being constantly available because of the digital aspects of it, unless we actually set some boundaries in place and put some yes and no things on the list, then it's going to take control of us.
Yeah, definitely. And like, that is one thing that I've had to kind of put in place, is like at 6 p.m. notifications are switched off. And that's my time. I'm not working anymore. And again, like, first thing in the morning, it's so easy to just reach over, get your phone off the nightstand and kind of look through social media or answer emails or whatever. And it's really not good for us. So that period first thing in the morning when we wake up, and the period at the end of the day just before we go to sleep, they are really important for our self-care.
Yeah.
So if you just take 5 minutes in the morning just to do some stretches, or, you know, whatever, and in the evening, if it's just cleaning your face for 5 minutes, then, you know, just add those tail ends of the day. If that's all you have, then make those the best, like, 10 minutes of your day.
Yeah, I've just started doing these weird, like, even just like doing a face mask, or what did I do the other day? Oh, I found this cream that I'd had in the cupboard, like, that my friends bought me from Cowshed, which is like a stretch mark cream, and it's really nice and lovely. And it was one of those things that I still had a bit left, and I was like, I'm just going to stick it on because I still have stretch marks, so I'm just going to take that time. And again, just even like taking, or, you know, putting on foot cream or something like that, it just helps you feel good and shows yourself that you're important as well.
Yeah, and if you make the most of it, like the smell of the product, the feel of the product, and like between your fingers, the feel of massaging it into your skin, if you really kind of get very mindful about it and kind of really be in that moment of what you're doing, put all of your focus and attention on what you're doing, that'll be like the best experience.
Yeah, definitely.
And it doesn't take lots of money or lots of time. It's literally just putting a moisturiser on the skin.
Yeah, I know. I mean, just think what it's like when you shave your legs. It's great. What does a typical day look like for you? Is there such a thing?
Not really. Most days involve some customer service. That's such a crap word for it. But like, I get a lot of emails and contacts asking for advice, which I absolutely love. So a lot of like pretty much every day includes some kind of advice or that kind of thing. I never know what to call it. It's not really advice, but kind of that.
It's like care, isn't it, for your customers? Yeah.
So yeah, most days include some of that. Most days include some product making of some sort. Occasionally I'll be down on the allotment caring for the plants. Networking. It's pretty mixed, really.
That's good. I always feel like actually sitting behind the same desk for the same 8 hours a day, like I would just be like some Larry toddler going wild, running up and down and, in my lunch break, because I just don't think I'd be able to handle it anymore. I'm not that sort of disciplined to kind of go, no, you must only do this and not veer anywhere else.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah, but I am available. One final question, which is, where would you like to be in 5 years' time?
This one, like, over the years I've worked with like loads of like business coaches and stuff, and they always ask me that question. I'm like, I don't know.
No, well, it's one of those things, isn't it? And I say it to my clients that some people can really visualize it, and they've got a plan, and they've got their financial goals or whatever. But also, some of my clients find it really stifling because they're like, but how do I move forward today? Like, I know that I do want that 5-bedroom house, but like, do I write a blog post about that? Like, it can make you feel quite stuck and actually not that empowered.
Yeah, and I mean, like, when I mentioned earlier about not last summer, the summer before, when I needed like packed it all in, it was because I'd been working with this business coach, and he was very of the mind that you need to go fast, you need to go big, you need to grow the business, you need to work out your end game, when you're going to sell it, when you're going to franchise it, and all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh my God, do I have to do all of that? So then I was like working under this assumption that I had to do all this work and had to get all this done, and like, oh my God, which is when I got like really stressed. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm just going to pack it in.
That terrifies me about my industry, actually, because if like anyone's listening, a coach should, it's kind of like this thing when actors join agents, you shouldn't like pay them money. And I think this is the thing with coaching, is that you shouldn't have a coach that tells you exactly what you should do. That is not coaching. So you can tell him to go away.
I wasn't with him for very long.
No, I sense that, because I've had those discovery calls with those coaches as well. And I'm like, no, you just feel like you're telling me off.
Yeah, that was like every time I had like a meeting with him, it was like, I felt like I was being told off.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is not good. So now I just kind of like, how I brought it back from that is like getting back to like, what do I want? And I like a much slower pace. So I like being out on the allotment, tending with the plants, being involved with picking them and getting them ready for using in the products. And I like that. I mean, like, it's pretty much what I preach in my business, like taking time for yourself and for your growth, and like getting to know who you are. And I think that's the same with my business. I kind of get to know who or what the business wants to be, kind of like on a monthly basis or an annual basis. So I never know where I want to be. There's things that I want to achieve, yes, but I don't have that big picture of where I want to be.
That's lovely, actually, to have that flexibility, and also it allows you to branch out into different areas. My having a podcast might not have been in my 5-year plan 5 years ago, but it was probably in my plan 3 years ago, but then it took me another 3 years to actually make it. And I think it just always comes back to those brand values that you have for yourself, or the stuff that it's probably not as serious and business like as that, but just that sense of who you want to be in the world and what's going to suit you and your lifestyle.
Yeah, so for example, I mean, like, I've always wanted to teach, for want of a better word, like in like live environments. So I've always wanted to run like workshops and things like that, and that this year I'm kind of starting to do that. So yes, it's been something that I've wanted to achieve, but I've never had that deadline of like, I need to do it by now. It's just like, as we were saying before, like, it's come back to the timing. It feels right now. And I think that was actually because I got back in touch with growing the plants. So I kind of regained that that passion for the raw ingredients that I use. So now I want to share that with other people as well.
And how does that feel now that you're back in that flow of things?
It's pretty amazing.
The reason I ask is that sometimes I know myself, like I don't celebrate those. Like sometimes I struggle to celebrate those external wins, like booking that thing or doing that thing, but also those shifts in myself of like, oh blimey, I've really worked hard and been able to turn my mindset around then.
Yeah, I mean, like that whole thing, like coaches and things, and like the advice you find online and everything, they always say like celebrate your wins, no matter how small. And I'm like, oh, I forgot to celebrate that thing.
No, that happened 8 months ago. Oh yeah. No, I'm behind. And I was going to have a glass of champagne. Now I'm going to have 2 bottles because I've forgotten all these moments. Brilliant. So if people want to come and find out more about the products and you and what you're all about and send you all those emails for advice, where should they go? Please don't bombard. Where should they go?
Well, the website is freyaluna.co.uk, so that's FREYALUNA.co.uk. We're also on Instagram, which is my favourite platform at the moment, which is Freyaluna Rituals. We're the same on Facebook, and on Twitter I'm at Sami Blackford.
Amazing.
So you can find me in any of those places.
Right, and I really hope this episode has not only inspired you, but also you will be well moisturised by the end. There's going to be women and men lathering up all up and down the country and the world. Well, we're listening to in like every continent in the world, so wherever you are, get your moisturiser out.
And make it the best 2 minutes of the day.
You're right. Send us some pictures, actually. Tag us in those of like what you're doing in that self-care. It would be great. But thank you so much, Sami. I've really loved this chat, and it's just made me feel really centered and really like my stepdad actually has an allotment, and my little boy absolutely loves that. And it's just sometimes those simple things, isn't it, of it sounds like that character from the Fast Show, in nature brilliant, but it really is like it's really so clever. But thank you so much. See you later. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to hear what you thought of the episode and share any takeaways with me. Come and find me across social media at Nicky Raby, or you can visit the podcast page, nickyraby.com/podcast.